everyone. I hope at this point you have decided on a speech topic for your informative speech. Again, these speeches are 4 to 6 minutes and it's just informative, which means you just have to, give us facts and inform us on interesting information about the topic. The speech is not your diary or your personal account, but it's about gathering research, getting information. And one of the key things to creating a speech, one of the starting points, is creating an outline. And you'll see on Moodle that I have the outline format that I want you to follow. It's really important that you follow this format. Now, I'm not going to lie, outlining can be tedious. It's not always fun. And the truth is, most of us don't follow a really formal outline format anymore. When you're in grade school, they teach you the Roman numerals and the letters and the numbers and all that. Most of us now just sort of take notes, in our notebooks and things like that. But when it comes to doing a speech, you kind of want to get back to that format that's very structured. It really will help you keep you organized. Students always ask me if they could present with note cards or things like that, but I say no. It's the outline. Okay, so you're going to create an outline for yourself as you're preparing your speech. That's called a preparation outline. But then you're going to take that information and you're going to condense it. And then you're going to use what we call a delivery outline. And the delivery outline is also called a keyword outline. So a keyword outline means that all you do is put keywords and phrases on the outline because that helps you during delivery. If you write out an entire speech, you're going to end up reading the entire speech to us. And this is not public reading. It's public speaking, okay? So the idea of an outline is to just give you a couple notes to remember what to talk about. So you glance at your outline, you can remember your next point that you have to discuss. The key to good speaking for a speech is that you actually know the information. So you don't need it all written out in front of you, but you just want the outline as a guide. So, when you're making your rough draft of your outline, you can write things out in complete sentences and things like that. But when it's time to actually present your speech, and for the outline that you're going to hand in to me, it's going to be keywords and phrases. Your outline should not be more than 1 to 2 pages long, okay? And you're going to use that during your delivery. When you're actually, presenting your speech, you're going to use your outline and you can hold it and you can glance at it and that's fine, okay? So please take a look at some of the sample outlines that I have on Moodle as well. I think those will be helpful. Again, it may be a little tedious in the beginning, but once you get the outlining process down, it really will help you and will keep your information organized and will help you when you need to present. One of the other things that I want to talk about today is the 3 parts of your speech. When you're creating a speech, you actually are creating 3 distinct parts. Now, a lot of people think that you write a speech like a paper. So you start at the beginning and you just write. That's not the case. With a speech, we have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The body of the speech is really where you start your speech. The body of your speech are your main points. It's also the research, the facts, the evidence that you've collected. So when I'm talking about research and facts, I'm talking about quotations, statistics, stories, examples, hypothetical, stories. All of those things are what gives your speech credibility, okay? So all of that is in the body of your speech. I think of the 3 parts of a speech kind of similar to the 3 parts of a meal. When you go out to a restaurant, okay, you sit down, you have your appetizers, then they remove the plates, and then the entree comes in, and then you have your dessert. So each part of the meal is kind of a separate experience. Same thing happens with a speech, okay? So the body of the speech is sort of your entree. It's kind of the meat and potatoes, right? It's a big part of the meal. So once you have that completed and you know what your main points are, and again, 3 main points, okay, that's always a good rule of thumb, okay, to have 3 main points. So you know your main points, you have your research, you have your information. Then you go back and then you create your introduction and you can create your conclusion. So there's a couple things you want to do in your intro. The very first thing you need to do is grab the audience's attention. Do not say hello, give me your name, and state what your topic is. Don't do that, okay? It's boring to just say, hi, my name is Gina, and I'm going to talk about exercise. Or so, your starting statement, the first thing that comes out of your mouth should be an attention getter, should be a hook. And that hook can be a quote, can be a story, can be an image, can be a picture. It can be humor, if you use it properly. Sometimes people think they're funny and they're not. So, humor can be okay sometimes, but a startling fact, like I said, statistic, those types of things, but you have to have something that grabs us right from the beginning. Then you want to reveal what your topic is, okay, and what you're actually talking about. The next thing that you're going to do is establish your credibility. Your credibility means that you're believable about this topic. Well, why should we believe you? Well, if you have experience with your topic, then chances are we would listen to you. So for example, if you're going to do a speech on volleyball and you've been playing volleyball for 10 years, then you're a credible source. You want to tell us that. Tell us that you've been playing for 10 years. If you are doing a speech on Disney and you've gone to Disney, every year since you're 5 years old, tell us that, because that gives you some credibility because you have a connection to the topic. In addition to that, you also want to tell us that you've done the research. So you might say, as a Disney fan who's been to Disney 15 times, I also did the research. So today I'm going to share information with you. So the idea is you want to let us know what your credibility is. Did you do the research? Have you found the facts? Or do you have a personal connection to the topic? And you actually want to state that right in the beginning so that we know you're a credible source. And the last thing would be previewing the main points of your speech. So you actually want to tell us what you're going to talk about. So for example, if you were doing a speech on pizza, you might say, today in my speech, I'm going to talk about the history of pizza, the different variations, and why it's such a popular food. Okay, so you actually want to tell us that so that the audience knows what's to come and we know what your main points are. Your introduction is really important. If you don't get the audience listening from the beginning, we may not listen at all. So you want to grab our attention with a fun fact, a quote, a story, an image, something creative. Be creative, okay? Reveal what your topic is. Then state your credibility, whether it's your connection to the topic or that you've done the research, okay? And then list what your main points are, okay? List those main points so we know exactly what points you're going to cover in your speech. Then you jump into the body, and that's when you're going to go through your main points. One of the key things in the body of your speech is that you're using transitions. So when you move from one point to the next, we should have a transitional statement. Not just first, second, or third, but we want to hear, well, now that we've talked about the history of pizza, let's take a look at the different variations. Okay, so we actually hear, this is where we were, this is where we're going, okay? So it allows the audience to follow along. It's kind of like giving us a roadmap to your speech because the audience doesn't know what you're going to talk about, okay? They don't have your outline in front of them, so you want to make it as clear as possible for the audience, and that's really key. A good public speaker is organized, probably more than anything, and so using transitional statements from point to point will help. I have to say one of the things that students struggle with are transitions. Every time I fill out grading sheets, I have to tell my students, remember to use transitions. Remember to, transition from one point to the next. So use those sentences, okay? After you go through the body of your speech and you've completed your main points and all your research, you then get to your conclusion, which is so simple. The first thing you want to do is signal the finish, which means let us know you're at the end. So saying in conclusion is probably the easiest way to do that. But if you want to come up with a new phrase, you can. To conclude, to wrap up. It doesn't matter what you say, but you want the audience to know that, oh, we're at the end. Okay. It also allows me, as I'm grading you, to know that we've entered the conclusion because I sort of grade each part of the speech separately. And you'll see my grading sheet on Moodle, so you know exactly what to expect. But once you get to the conclusion, now I know you're ready to wrap up. So signal the ending, okay? Let us know that you're at the conclusion. Then just review your main points. In just a couple sentences, briefly review the main points that you discussed. And the last thing to do in the conclusion is end with a creative statement, okay? You want to end with a bang, all right? You want to keep us wanting more. Leave us wanting more, okay? So don't just say, okay, that's it, or I'm done. No, have some kind of a statement. That could be a quote. It could be, a question, leaving us with a question so you leave us thinking. All of the things that you do in the beginning of your speech as your intro to grab attention can also work in the conclusion. So it sort of brings the speech full circle. So if you started with a question in the beginning, you might want to end with that question. Or if you started with a statistic, maybe you want to end with another statistic or a quote. So think about how you're going to wrap up the speech. It's kind of like putting a bow on a present. Okay, you got to wrap it up real pretty, and then you have a real formal ending to the actual speech. Okay, so once you know your topic, you're going to focus on collecting lots of research, lots of information, and you're going to outline all of that information, and then you want to put it into your 3 parts of your speech and create each part separately. I kind of tell my students to almost like, create little squares on a piece of paper and think about, well, what am I putting in the body? All the information there. Then go back and list the information that's going to go in the intro and the conclusion. So tackle each part separately because it really makes creating the speech easier. If you sit down and you start from the beginning, you don't really know where you're going. So create the body, okay, have your main points. So really choosing your topic would be first, right? Thinking of your 3 main points, collecting all the research, and organizing the body of your speech. Then go back, create the introduction, and then create your conclusion. And that's the easiest way to do the speech. My students tend to find that pretty simple because it puts things into compartments and it kind of makes the process a little easier than just trying to do everything all at once. Okay, so that's a little bit about outlining and the 3 parts of your speech.